shifting our focus to Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a digital global ledger. It's a digital commodity, meaning an asset without an issuer. It's peer-to-peer money without need for a third party. There's no central entity in control or in power, which means that there is no central point of failure, in contrast to fiat, as we will see in a minute. Bitcoin is a set of rules without rulers. It's open source network. It's open source code available for everyone in the world to run. It's a finite supply of 21 million coins, which is enforced by code, and obviously represents a global brand and has all the network effects. What's so interesting about Bitcoin is that it's very difficult to evaluate given our framework of what money is, given our framework of what the fiat financial system represents. Money is not something that's taught in school, um, and our current financial system is a credit-based system that needs continual increase in the money supply in order to function. And so Bitcoin is different. Bitcoin is it's decentralized, and it's deflationary money in contrast to fiat, as we will see. Bitcoin, as I said, does not fit with any prior mental framework, and Bitcoin is both difficult to see and impossible to unsee once discovered. I feel this is very, very true. Um, Anyone who's listening to this video and understands Bitcoin understands that this concept is extremely true. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Just want to share here a few of comments of Satoshi's comments on Bitcoin forums. This is back from February 11, 2009. Um, so he states here, the root problem with conventional currency is all the trust that's required to make it work. The central bank must be trusted not to debase the currency, but the history of fiat currencies is full of breaches of that trust. And so this is why Satoshi created Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is a trustless system. You do not need to trust the network. You can verify it. You can actually go into the mempool and verify um, the transactions. And this is what I'm showing here. We'll talk about this in a minute. Another quote from Bitcoin, from Satoshi, explaining Bitcoin's value. This is back in March 2009. So historically, people have taken up scarce commodities as money, if necessary, taking up whatever is at hand, such as shells or stones. Each has a kernel of usefulness that helped bootstrap the process, but the monetary value ends up being much more than the functional value alone. Most of the value comes from the value that others place in it. Gold, for instance, is pretty, non-corrosive, and easily malleable, but most of its value is clearly not from that. Brass is shiny and similar in color. The vast majority of gold sits unused in vaults, owned by governments that could care less about its prettiness. Until now, no scarce commodity that can be traded over a communication channel without a trusted third party has been available. If there is a desire to take up a form of money that can be traded over the internet without a trusted third party, then now that is possible. He's obviously talking about Bitcoin. So these are basically forums where Satoshi basically had exchanges, back and forth exchanges with other people that were into this, into the creation of digital money. And the creation of digital money dates back to like the 70s. It's a very interesting history. There are books that talk a little bit more about that. This is the abstract of the Bitcoin white paper. The white paper is a 9-page document that Satoshi shared with a cryptographer mailing list back in October 31st, 2008. This is just the abstract. I highly recommend that everyone reads the white paper, even though it's a bit technical. This is the I'm just showing here a picture of the Genesis block. The Genesis block is basically the first block that was mined by Satoshi. This is back in 2009, January 3rd, 2009. You can see the date here. You can see the amount of Bitcoin in that wallet, not in that wallet, meaning in that transaction. Um, and very interesting here. Satoshi uh, wrote this comment on the Genesis block. The Times, '03, January 2009. Chancellor on brink of second bailout for banks. And what was Satoshi talking about? So he was basically talking about what was going on in the financial system at that time. Basically, we were on the brink of the great financial crisis. We had bailed out um, banks globally, not only in the US, but also in other Western countries. This is the Times, the London Times. You can see the date, January 3rd, 2009, and you can see the headline here, Chancellor on brink of second bailout for banks. So Satoshi was basically uh, stating very clear that he's vehemently opposed to what we were doing, um, to, to the unfair system that was basically giving these bailouts to the rich and the powerful. All right, so talking a bit about Bitcoin fundamentals, Bitcoin's transaction history is visible to anyone and everyone in the world, as we were able to see here. I only showed the Genesis block, but you can go into the mempool and look at all the transactions and all the blocks since inception. This is the first block. This is the inception block. Bitcoin, there will be a total of 21 million coins that will have been mined by 2140. Currently, 90% of the total supply has already been issued. So by 2140, all Bitcoin will have been mined. By 2035 or so, 2032 to 2035, about 10 years from now, 99% of all the total supply will have been mined. Let me show you here. 2032, 2036, 99% of all Bitcoin will have been mined. So currently, about 10 years for the next 9% to come out. And after that, 100 years after, the 1% will come out of over the next 100 years, which is pretty amazing. This basically, as Michael Saylor likes to put it, basically creates a digital rush for Bitcoin, a digital Bitcoin rush, as institutions and wealthy institutions and sovereign countries will probably flock to try to get some of this supply. Supply of Bitcoin gets halved every 4 years, on average every 4 years, every 210,000 blocks. So as I was showing back in 2009, the block reward was 50 Bitcoins per block for 210,000 blocks. That dropped to 25 Bitcoins per block in 2013, 12.5 in 2017 or so, and currently we're at 3.12 Bitcoins per block. That's the block reward that the miners get once they mine a block. So Bitcoin is deflationary money, as I was showing here. Over time, that reward gets cut in half, meaning the amount of Bitcoin that's issued gets cut in half, and we can see 10 years from now, we're only at a fraction of one Bitcoin every block, which is a tiny amount. We should expect to continue seeing the price of Bitcoin rise as that block reward gets cut in half. And there will always be people who are not willing to sell their Bitcoin at any price. I know people who are certainly not going to sell their Bitcoin at any price. 500,000, $1 million, whatever price. They will not sell their Bitcoin because they know that Bitcoin is the most valuable asset in the world. And you just don't sell the most valuable asset for something that's inferior. So Bitcoin is deflationary money. Fiat is inflationary money. This is the M2 chart of the M2 money supply. This is from the Fed website. This is measured in trillions of dollars. So it's $21 trillion, $21.5 trillion. This is all the money that's in circulation, checking accounts, savings accounts, money market funds, I believe as well. You can see how the money supply has just massively increased, particularly since we severed the tie with gold, since we came off the gold standard. The money supply has increased more and more. So what's the problem with this? The problem is that you're holding dollars. And as you increase the money supply, there's more currency in circulation, meaning that those dollars that you're holding are worth less and less over time. So I like to call Bitcoin the thermometer in the room. Showing a few charts here. Bitcoin price, this is back to 2013, 2014. Bitcoin price, M2 global supply measured in US dollars, but this is the M2 money supply. You can see there's somewhat of correlation. Increase in money supply tends to make Bitcoin go up. Um, there's some correlation here, right? And you could also see the M2 year over year money supply. We had a very massive year over year money supply back in the early 2020s with COVID. Governments worldwide have cut back somewhat on that, given the increase in inflation. But at some point, we're gonna be back to massively increasing our M2 growth, because otherwise the system, which is based off of debt, will not be able to grow. Governments cannot grow their GDP if we do not increase our money supply, and we don't have, and if we don't have government spending um, increase. And so we can expect this to continually increase, obviously, as M2 money supply grows, and people realize that Bitcoin is the safest asset in the world, even though it's not being treated as that currently. People will continue to realize that Bitcoin is the safest store of value in the world. So Bitcoin fundamentals: miners provide invest computational energy to secure the network. Talking about hash rate here. The miner who validates the next block is rewarded with newly minted coins, currently 3.12 Bitcoins per block, plus the transaction fees. Um, so I just want to make a statement here. After 2140, where all the Bitcoin will have been mined, the system will have to support itself on transaction fees. So transaction fees will have to grow large enough, where transaction fees will be basically used to pay the miners to validate the blocks, since no more Bitcoins um, will be mined. And so, of course, by then the price of Bitcoin in terms of fiat will be massive, and so the transaction fees will, even if they grow, they'll still be a tiny fraction of a Bitcoin, or even or even of a chunk of Bitcoin. So as Bitcoin hash grows, use of specialized machines is required. These are called ASIC miners. Before, early on in the protocol, you were able to mine Bitcoin using your computer, normal GPU. But now, given all the energy that's required to mine Bitcoin, these complex miner machines are required. And increasing the energy requirement by the Bitcoin network is a good thing because it makes it more secure, as the cost of attacking the network outweighs the potential gains. That's why the network has never been hacked, and it probably never will be. It's extremely secure. It's the most secure computer network in the world. Just want to show here briefly, kind of like how Bitcoin works. So basically, you connect your wallet to your computer. You decide how much Bitcoin you want to send to an address. You sign that transaction. That transaction goes through the nodes. The nodes are the ones who are seeing all the transactions. The nodes are the ones who relay those transactions to the miners, and the miners are the ones who expend the energy through a proof of work mining algorithm, where they basically have to expend energy in order to solve a very complex mathematical algorithm. Um, and this is done randomly, and so that's why it requires so much energy. It's basically they make an input, they get an output. They make an input, they get an output. And so once that the miner that validates the next block gets that mining reward, and that block is added into the blockchain. So that's very general, very basic how Bitcoin works. Of course, there's a lot of other nuances and a bit more. One could go a bit more in depth, but that's just a general overview. So each Bitcoin is divided into 100 million units or satoshis. We talked about the importance of money being divisible. Bitcoin is divisible into 100 million units or Satoshis. Bitcoin can be sent in any amount to anyone in the world in a permissionless, censorship-resistant manner. The interesting thing here is that you can send $10, you can send $10 billion. The amount, the fee that you're going to pay may just be the same. It might be $1 or $2. It might be even less than that. Point is, Bitcoin can be sent in any amount to anyone in the world, and the fee is not dependent on the size of the transaction. Bitcoin cannot be hacked or confiscated if stored in a hardware wallet. All right, I'm gonna try to cut the video short here. We'll come back to part 3 and we'll talk about fragility, anti-fragility. It's a very interesting concept, but we'll try to keep these short, so I'm gonna stop here for now.